The people you love are the real legacy. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It truly helps the channel grow and continue to create contents like this. The older I get, the more I understand that life isn't a ladder. It's a circle. You keep thinking you're climbing. Titles, milestones, shiny photos, the next big thing. And then one day you look down and realize you've been walking around the same truth the whole time. People are the point. I used to believe legacy meant leaving something behind that had my name on it. A business. A house. A plaque on a wall. Something solid enough that time couldn't erase it. That's what we were taught, in 1,000 quiet ways. Work hard. Build something. Be somebody. The world applauds those things, and applause is intoxicating when you're young. It makes you feel permanent. But permanence is a trick of the light. At 88, I've watched buildings come down, companies merge and vanish, and awards get boxed up and handed to strangers. I've watched neighborhoods change names and faces. I've watched people sell dream homes because their knees couldn't handle the stairs anymore. The things we chase do not stay. They don't hold you when the night gets long. They don't sit by your bed. They don't squeeze your hand and say, "I'm here." People do. If you want to know what lasts, I'll tell you what I see now when I look back. I see a handful of faces like lanterns in a dark field. I see my mother's hands, flour on her wrists, humming while she cooked. I see my father's tired smile when he came home and tried to pretend he wasn't exhausted. I see my wife at the sink, sleeves rolled up, singing softly to the radio, making a life out of ordinary minutes. I see my best friend on a porch with 2 cups of coffee, both of us talking about nothing and everything, letting the afternoon drift without needing to justify it. Those are the things that stayed. The hard part is that you don't always realize you're living the good old days while they're happening. You don't know a moment is precious until it becomes a memory. That's why so many people my age speak with that particular ache. We're not just remembering. We're measuring what we can't get back. I remember a Tuesday that changed my understanding of legacy forever. It wasn't a wedding or a funeral. It wasn't a graduation. It was a plain, working Tuesday. I was in my 40s, the busy years, the years where you feel like you're running a relay race and the baton is always on fire. I had an important meeting downtown. Suit, briefcase, the whole performance. I was halfway out the door when my son, maybe 9 years old, came running down the hall with a drawing in his hand. "Dad, look," he said. "I made us." He held up a picture of a house, a son, a stick-figure family. He'd drawn me taller than everyone else, like a superhero. My heart did that warm lift you feel when you're loved without conditions. And then my mind, trained by urgency, snapped back to the clock. "That's great, buddy," I said, already moving. "I'll look at it later." Later. A harmless word, I thought. He stood there and watched me go. He didn't throw a fit. He didn't cry. He just folded the paper in half carefully, as if he was protecting it from the air. Then he tucked it into a drawer. I didn't know it then, but I just taught him something. Not with a lecture, with a choice. I taught him that my attention had a price, and he couldn't afford it. Years passed. We were fine, I told myself. We had birthdays. We had vacations. We had holiday mornings. But something subtle had changed. He stopped running to meet me at the door. He stopped interrupting my phone calls. He stopped asking me to see his drawings. He grew, as kids do, and he learned to keep his world to himself. One day, when he was grown, he mentioned that Tuesday. He said it gently, not accusing, just honest. "I remember when I showed you that picture and you said you'd look later." I remember thinking, oh, I'm not supposed to bother him. He smiled when he said it, like he didn't want to hurt me. But it did hurt me, because I could see the moment clearly now. I could see the hinge where something small swung and a door quietly closed. That's what people mean when they say missed moments can't be recovered. It's not always the big things. It's the little invitations. A child saying, "Look." A friend saying, "Come sit." A spouse saying, "Talk to me." Those invitations are the raw material of closeness. When you miss them enough times, the person stops offering. And then you can't rewind. I've sat with many people near the end, friends, cousins, neighbors, coworkers. The same themes show up again and again. They don't talk about their resume. They talk about the people who drifted away. They talk about the brother they didn't call, the friend they lost contact with, the partner they kept postponing. They talk about how life gets loud and you assume the people you love will always be there, waiting patiently like furniture. They won't. Not because they don't love you. Because time is moving for them, too. Here's something I learned late but still managed to use. Relationships aren't a decoration on a successful life. They are the structure. Take them away and everything else becomes hollow. You can have a big house and eat dinner alone. You can win awards and feel invisible. You can be admired and still be lonely. Loneliness doesn't care what you've accomplished. But connection does something almost sacred. Connection makes suffering bearable. Connection makes joy contagious. Connection is the only thing I've seen that grows more valuable with age. When you're young, you think you're building a life. When you're old, you realize you were building a network of hands, hands to hold, and hands to be held by. That's the legacy. The people who carry your stories forward. The people who say your name with warmth. The people who learn how to love because you loved them. And here's the secret. That kind of legacy doesn't require greatness. It requires presence. Presence is not grand. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't get posted. Presence is turning your chair towards someone. Presence is staying 5 minutes longer. Presence is calling back. Presence is remembering the small details. Presence is asking, "How are you really?" and meaning it. There's a scene I replay often now. My wife and I were in our late 60s, sitting on the back steps in the evening. The air smelled like cut grass. Fireflies blinked in the yard like tiny, patient stars. She leaned her head against my shoulder and said, "We did a lot of things, didn't we?" "We did," I said. She was quiet for a while, then she said, "I'm glad we kept people close." I didn't answer right away. I just listened to the sound of the neighborhood settling, distant laughter, a dog barking, someone washing dishes. Ordinary music. And I felt relief wash through me, because I knew she was right. Even with my mistakes, even with the years I ran too fast, we had kept love near the center more often than not. She passed a few years later. The day after the funeral, the house felt like it had lost its heartbeat. But the phone rang. People came by. Food showed up on my porch. Friends sat with me without needing to fix me. I didn't survive that grief because I was strong. I survived because I wasn't alone. That is legacy. So if you're listening while you're in the thick of your own life, busy, tired, trying to do everything, remember this: achievements are loud, but love is what echoes. Don't wait for the perfect time to show up for people. Perfect is a mirage. Call the friend. Visit the parent. Sit on the floor with the kid. Ask the question. Say the words. Send the message you keep meaning to send. Because one day you will be too old, or they will be gone, and you will understand with painful clarity that you were rich all along, and you spent your riches elsewhere. I think about friendships, too. Friendship is a quiet garden. If you don't water it, it doesn't announce its death. It just dries out slowly until one day you notice the color is gone. We tell ourselves we're busy, as if busyness is a season that will pass. But busy becomes a lifestyle, and then it becomes a habit, and then it becomes the story you tell at reunions. We should do this more. Those words sound harmless, but they're often the last words before people drift out of reach. I had a friend named Jonah who used to call every Sunday afternoon. He'd start with the weather, then a story about a neighbor, then something he read, then a memory from 20 years ago. I used to catch myself tapping my foot, thinking about the errands I could be doing. Now I'd give anything for one more of those wandering, unhurried calls. Jonah is gone, and the silence he left is the kind you can't fill with tasks. When people say, "Family is everything," it can sound like a slogan. But in the last chapters of life, it becomes a simple fact. At the end, You don't want more success or more applause. You want a chair next to your bed. You want a voice that knows your childhood nickname. You want someone who doesn't have to ask how you take your tea. You want the comfort of being known. That's why I say the people you love are the real legacy. Not because they'll build a statue of you, but because they'll carry your kindness forward. They'll repeat your jokes. They'll cook your recipes. They'll tell your stories at tables you'll never sit at again. And in the best cases, they'll love others the way you loved them, passing it on like a warm coat in winter. If you want to make your future self proud, don't only chase what looks impressive. Chase what feels true. Choose the conversation. Choose the visit over the overtime. Choose to be the kind of person who returns calls, who notices, who shows up. The world will never run out of reasons to pull you away. Love is the reason to stay. In the next part, I'll share a simple practice for protecting your relationships, one small habit that keeps people close, even when life gets busy and loud. Message 2. That habit is simple enough to feel almost childish, and maybe that's why it works. Pick a small, repeatable rhythm, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever your life can hold, and use it to reach for the people you care about before distance becomes normal. Not when you have time. Not when guilt finally pricks you. Before. Call it your tether. I started doing it after my wife died, because grief taught me how quickly the world can change shape. I made a short list on an index card: my sister, my oldest friend, 2 neighbors, my son, my daughter. Nothing fancy. Just names. Every Sunday, after breakfast, I'd choose one name and make contact. A phone call. A visit. A message that said plainly, "I'm thinking of you." The first few times felt awkward. I worried I was intruding. I worried I'd sound sentimental. I worried they'd be busy. Then something surprising happened. People softened. They opened up. They told me things they hadn't told anyone in a while. They admitted they'd been lonely too. That's the secret most of us carry. We're all hungry for connection, and we're all afraid of being the one who reaches first. Reaching first is a kind of courage. I wish I had practiced that courage earlier. In my working years, I treated relationships like they were sturdy enough to survive neglect. I assumed love was a permanent resource, like water from a faucet. But love is more like a fire. It needs attention. It needs fuel. It needs you to show up with your hands and your time. When I was young, I thought the big moments were what mattered. The graduation. The wedding. The promotion. The anniversary dinner at the nice place. Those moments do matter, yes, but they are snapshots. A life is a whole film. And the scenes that make the story feel real are the ordinary ones: the drive to school, the quick hug in the kitchen, the jokes on the couch, the walk around the block, the long talk in the car when someone finally tells you what's been hurting. If you miss enough ordinary scenes, the big ones lose their meaning. You show up to the wedding, but you don't know the person standing at the altar. You attend the graduation, but you don't know what kept them awake at night. You clap at the ceremony, then go home to a silence you created. I've heard people my age talk about regret in a way that isn't dramatic, but it's devastating. They say, "We were always busy." They say, "I thought there would be more time." They say, "I didn't realize that was the last time." That last one is the sharpest. The last time someone asks you to play. The last time a friend invites you out. The last time your father calls. The last time your mother laughs. The last time your spouse reaches for your hand in the dark. The tragedy is that last times rarely feel like last times. They feel like Tuesdays. I remember my mother's final good year. She lived in a small apartment then, and she liked it tidy. She kept a bowl of peppermints on the table, the kind that stick to the wrapper a little. I'd stop by after work, still wearing my work mind, and she would ask about my day. I'd answer quickly, half there, already thinking about tomorrow. She'd nod and listen, not demanding anything, just grateful for my presence, even the thin version of it. One evening she said, "Sit a little longer. Tell me a story." I said, "I'm tired, Ma. I'll come by this weekend." She smiled and said, "Okay, honey." I did come by that weekend. And the weekend after. But my visits had the same shape, efficient, polite, and rushed. Then she got sick fast, so fast it felt like someone snapped their fingers and the season changed. I sat by her bed and tried to pour love into the room like it could make up for lost years. I held her hand and talked, as if words could build a bridge backward. When she died, I found a small notebook in her drawer. It had grocery lists, little reminders, and on one page, in her careful handwriting, a sentence. "He is busy, but he loves me." I stared at that line for a long time. It was her generosity even then. She defended me in her own private notes. And it also broke my heart, because I could see how much she had settled for. So here is what I want you to take from all this, in the plainest language I can manage. Don't make the people you love settle for the rushed version of you. Give them the unhurried version. Give them the version that lingers. Give them the version that asks questions and waits for the full answer. Give them the version that notices the change in their voice. Give them the version that shows up without needing a reason. And if you're thinking, "I'll do that when things calm down," I want you to hear me. Things may not calm down. Life doesn't calm down. It shifts. The problems change costumes. The calendar stays full unless you guard it. If you want closeness, you have to choose it on purpose. Choose it in small ways. Put the phone down when someone is talking. Send the message now, not later. Invite the friend, even if you might get a no. Say the words out loud. "I miss you. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry. Thank you." Show up for the boring parts, because the boring parts are where trust is built. There's a kind of wealth that only appears when you stop treating people like an accessory to your real life. The wealth is laughter at odd hours. The wealth is being known. The wealth is having someone who can tell, just by the way you say hello, whether you're okay. When I look back now, the achievements feel like distant lights on a shoreline. They're pretty, but they're far away. The people are close. The people are warm. The people are the ones who held my life together when it threatened to unravel. That's the real legacy, not what you built, but who you built it with, and who you loved while you were building. So tonight, or tomorrow morning, do one small thing. Pick one person. Reach. Don't craft a perfect message. Don't wait for the right mood. Just reach. A tether is made one strand at a time. And if you start now, you may find, years from now, that your life is full of hands, hands that remember you, hands that hold you, hands that carry your stories forward with tenderness. That is what lasts. I want to tell you about a man named Ruthie, yes, a man, an old nickname from childhood, that I met in the waiting room of a cardiology clinic. He wore a suit jacket over a sweatshirt, like he couldn't decide which life he was in anymore. We talked the way older people do, easily, because there's less to prove. He told me he had run a company for decades. He'd traveled constantly. He'd provided, he said, and the words sounded heavy in his mouth. Then he leaned in and lowered his voice, as if he was confessing a crime. "My granddaughter doesn't know me," he said. "She's polite. She calls me sir sometimes. Like I'm a neighbor." He shook his head slowly, staring at his hands. "I keep trying to buy it back with gifts," he said. "But you can't give someone a childhood with you in it." That sentence stayed with me. You can't buy back presents. You can't purchase the moment you missed when your kid's face lit up at the door. The only way is forward, with humility, with consistency, with patience. And sometimes legacy is not a grand love story. Sometimes it's repair. It's calling the brother you haven't spoken to in 10 years and saying, "I don't want to carry this anymore." It's admitting you were wrong. It's letting pride drain out of your voice. I've seen miracles happen in small living rooms when two stubborn people finally choose peace over being right. I had my own version of that. My sister and I went through a stretch, years really, where we spoke only at holidays, and even then it was careful, like walking on thin ice. One winter, after my wife died, I found myself staring at the phone, thinking, if I don't call her now, when will I? I dialed, heart pounding like I was a teenager asking someone out. When she answered, I said, "I miss you." That was it. No speech. No evidence. Just the truth. There was a pause, and then she exhaled, one long breath that sounded like a door opening. "I miss you too," she said. We cried. We laughed a little at ourselves. And from that day, we became sister and brother again, not perfect, but real. That call didn't change my past, but it changed the rest of my life. If you're someone who doesn't have an easy family story, here's a gentle truth: legacy isn't only blood. It's belonging. It's the friend who becomes a cousin. It's the neighbor who becomes family. It's the community you build by being the kind of person who shows up. In my neighborhood, there's a woman who bakes bread when someone is sick. She doesn't post about it. She just appears with a warm loaf, like kindness is her default setting. People talk about her with a kind of reverence, not because she has a fancy job, but because she makes life gentler. That's a legacy I can see with my own eyes. So when you think about what you want to leave behind, don't just think about objects. Think about atmosphere. When you walk into a room, do people feel safer? Do they feel rushed? Do they feel seen? The mood you create around you is something people remember long after they forget what you did for a living. If you're tempted to chase achievements because you're afraid of being forgotten, I understand. We all want to matter. But the surest way to matter is to make others feel like they matter. That kind of significance multiplies. It travels outward. And one day, when your own nights become quiet, you'll have something better than trophies. You'll have names you can say with warmth, and voices that answer. You'll have love that remains. That is the inheritance worth giving.